Hi lovelies, I'm Eileen, the Mellow Astrologer, and if you don't know, I am a second generation evolutionary astrologer. I was trained by my mother, a master astrologer. She began studying astrology when I was about 12 years old or so. You can imagine I'm now 40, so I have been immersed in the language of astrology for decades now. I am an evolutionary astrologer. Now, what does that mean? Evolutionary astrology is a modern astrology. It's only been around for a few decades, and essentially, I am looking at your soul's evolutionary journey in this lifetime as shown in your unique astrology. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot is, where do I start with astrology? It's actually a very easy answer. The best place to start with astrology is with an astrological consultation. I know that sounds like I'm selling you. I'm not. The reason that that's the best place to start is because astrology is an extremely complex and nuanced art and science. If you're using an app or reading a horoscope or even just picking up a book and reading different elements of your personal astrology, if you've done this, then I know you have had the experience of reading certain things and being like, holy God, how did they know? It's spot on. That couldn't be more accurate. And you've also had the corresponding experience of reading something and being like, that's not me, like whatever, that's negative, or what? I don't think so, right? So we've all had that experience. We astrologers call the astrology textbooks cookbooks because they are not meant to be used as recipes. There is a lot of nuance and finesse to the interpretation of astrology. And in order to get to that expertise, that level of expertise, you need to study and practice for years and years, frankly. So you can't expect an app like CoStar to bring you the same depth that sitting with an experienced astrologer will bring you. What I have found and personally experienced is that there's basically two types of people. There's astrological enthusiasts, and then there's the astrological students who sometimes become professionals. Astrological enthusiasts are like most of my clients who understand the virtue and benefits of astrology. I'll dive into that a little bit deeper in a moment. Then there are the people who come for a consultation, and I have a student right now in the study group who's this way. She came to me for a private consultation and she just resonated at a very deep level with astrology, and now she's a student because she became a little bit obsessed. And I call this falling down the astrological rabbit hole, because that's usually what happens is when it really resonates with you at a deep level to the point where you want to actually start studying it in a more formal way, it overtakes you in some way. It really does. You find yourself at 2 a.m. sitting on your bed with your eyes like starting to ache because you've been reading for hours and you have 6 astrology books and like 10 printed astrological charts all around you because you've fallen down some different astrological rabbit hole. So it really is just this amazing, never-ending discipline that is endlessly fascinating, endlessly mystical, and surprising. It's like, it doesn't matter how much or how long you study astrology, my mom and I will still pick up the phone and be like, no way, you won't even believe this, right? And my mom has been doing this for 30 years and I've been doing it formally for quite some years now. So that's really the beauty and the magic of astrology. But where astrology is particularly helpful for individuals, especially those of us who are on a spiritual path, is that it really does have many answers for us. Now, it doesn't have all the answers, because what I have found is that the most profound answers to our lives are found within and not without. And so astrology, like any other spiritual tool, can help us go within and help us better understand our inner nature so that we can actually get to the root of many of these deep, deep questions that spiritual seekers are looking to have answered. And so the external resources are our mentors, our gurus, our saints, and whomever else, our wisdom traditions, are able to help us get to the point where our orientation is always refocused inward, because each of us has a different truth And that is a little Astro 101 for you. That is the Sagittarius Jupiter archetype. Okay, so Jupiter is the planet that rules the sign of Sagittarius. So we all have Jupiter in our chart, and some of us have a lot of Sagittarius in our chart, or our Jupiter is very strong in our chart. So for those of us who have a strong Jupiter or strong Sagittarius energy, this aspect of our lives becomes heightened, and it is the aspect of searching for the truth. There's two types of truths. Maybe there's more, but two primarily come to mind immediately, and that is universal truths. So what is true for everyone? And then there are individual truths. So what's true for me is not true for you. And it's not true for, our best friend, and it's not true for the grocery clerk, and it's not true for my colleague who sits in the office next door. But then there are universal truths, like we've all suffered profound loss through the global pandemic, right? That's a universal truth that we can pretty much all agree upon. There's others. You can ruminate on this and think about the difference between universal versus personal truths. And when we deny personal truths, that's when dogma occurs, right? And so we see dogmatism with a lot of different religious traditions that are proselytizing and pushing a particular viewpoint onto others. This, of course, happens with politics. It happens with, we ourselves can be fixed in our opinions, etc. So I am by no means persecuting religious traditions, okay? It's just that's where we see it most obviously. And that is also why the planet Jupiter and the sign of Sagittarius represents wisdom traditions, religions, and spiritual teachers generally. So astrology is really useful for assisting us in understanding what is true for ourselves and in answering some more profound life questions that we have. Where I find it to be the most useful, and I have truly heard this verbatim from more than a dozen people, if not dozens of people. In fact, if I had realized how many people were going to say these exact words to me, I would have started tallying it. Maybe I'll start now. And that is, astrology helps me understand myself better. Okay, so astrology is exceptionally useful for those of us who want to understand ourselves better. Okay, if you don't know what I mean by that, you may not be that person. Those of us who want to understand ourselves better, we want to know why did we say that rude thing to the grocery clerk the other day when we were in a bad mood? Why did we take it out on that person? Why is it that we incarnated into a family that has a particular personality trait that is carried down from generation to generation that is frankly a bitter pill to swallow? Or why do I have such a bad anger problem and it doesn't seem to matter what I do, I still have this explosive temper? Why? Okay, so astrology really does help us understand ourselves better. It really has those answers. You can see in the astrology, it is a reflection of who we are. And when you begin to understand or study the archetypes better, the archetypes are I like to use the synonym. Archetypes is a big word that is rather complex and has a complex history of use even. And I like to just make it real simple and say that archetypes are themes of our life. We all experience similar themes in life. All of us. It's unconscious even, okay? So the archetypes that we're experiencing, these energies that we are experiencing, are reflected in the astrology. And it is just incredibly validating. It's so validating to look at the astrology and see, yeah, that anger problem that has been plaguing you for the last few years, I can see it right there. And then on the other hand, it's not just about the identification and the validation, but from the evolutionary perspective, why might your soul have incarnated to experience anger? And what are the remedies for anger? What can we see in the astrology that can assist you in harnessing that anger, utilizing it differently, shifting your perspective about the anger, etc., etc. Okay, so this is the use of astrology. I once heard one of my teachers, Maurice Fernandez, he gave a presentation, and he said that he was extremely depressed. I believe he may have been suicidal when he discovered astrology. And it was so profoundly reassuring and validating. And he delved into it and is now a master astrologer. He's an incredible astrologer and incredible teacher too. And so you could see how somebody, even in a crisis point, or even most especially in a crisis point, can find and derive benefit from astrology. I personally had a lifelong history of depression that I've healed in the last few years, and I've healed my depression using astrology, spirituality, and therapeutic practices. So I took a holistic approach and diet as well. And had I not had astrology in my life, I believe that my depression either would have persisted longer or would still be here today. Okay, so I'm not saying astrology is a cure for depression. I'm obviously not a medical practitioner. What I am saying is that it provides a source of nourishment that can assist us in overcoming some of the most difficult patterns and problems that we experience in our lives. Is it a cure-all? No. Is it a magic pill? No. Is it easy to learn and understand? Not so much. It takes a lot of dedication, like learning any skill. Astrology is not simple to learn. This is why when you're on an app or you're reading your horoscope, it can sometimes piss you off and you can totally disagree, right? And this is why you come to an astrologer, because I have the experience to interpret your astrology in a well-rounded manner instead of it being cookbook astrology where I'm explaining this and I'm explaining that. I'm integrating all of these principles and archetypes for you so that you have a keener understanding, so that you walk away actually feeling like, yeah, that is me. That is an accurate reflection of who I am. And only a person can do that for you, right? A robot's never really going to be able to do that for you. Maybe in the future we'll have some robot that can be an astrologer, and frankly, I don't look forward to that day, but maybe. So where do you start with the astrology? You start with an astrological consultation with somebody that you feel really comfortable with, that you feel resonates with you, and that speaks your language, right? And it's fine if you're just curious and you're like, Eileen, I have no interest in all that spirituality mumbo jumbo. I just want to know about my astrology. That's great, fine. You probably wouldn't have even gotten this far in the video if that's you. And then there's those of us who have that astrological consultation and we get a little taste of what astrology is and we just want so much more, we can't stop. And for those of you, I have study groups and I'm coming out with some classes and I'll have other learning materials for you. I'll be teaching in other capacities as well. So that is where you start with the astrology, is a consultation. And then after that, if you want more, then you got to pick up some beginners books, and I'll be speaking to that in other videos. Thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you posted a little bit about your experience with astrology, why you love it. Is it because it helps you understand yourself better, or is there some other reason? And do you feel like, I'm just gonna forever get consultations at intervals when I feel compelled? Or are you like, give me more, that's the juiciest fruit? Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day. Ciao.